Hello, this is Michael Loyd. I have a master's in psychology, neuroscience, neuropsychology concentration. One of friends of the family was asking me to look up some information about Haiti, and I decided to look up a little bit more information on it. I know a little bit from what people have told me. I visited the island of Hispaniola, um, um, the Dominican Republic, but I have not been to Haiti specifically. First, I wanted to read something regarding the history. It says World Directory of Minorities and Indigenous Peoples, Haiti. This is publication date as of 2007. So uh, this came out a while ago. It's from the refworld.org. Minority Rights Group International, World Directory of Minorities and Indigenous Peoples, Haiti, 2007. It's available at www.refworld.org. It has it there. I'll paste it. Um, Comments in October 2015, MRG revised the World Directory of Minorities and Indigenous Peoples. For the most part, overview texts were not themselves updated, but the previous current state of minorities and indigenous peoples rubric was replaced throughout with links to the relevant minority specific reports and resources section was added. Ref World entries have been updated accordingly. Disclaimer: this is not a UNHCR publication. UNHCR is not responsible for, nor does it necessarily endorse, its content. Any views expressed are solely those of the author or publisher and do not necessarily reflect those of UNHCR, the United Nations, or its member states. Environment. The Republic of Haiti occupies the western third of the island of Hispaniola, which it shares with the Dominican Republic, DR. Haiti is bounded on the north by the Atlantic Ocean, on the south by the Caribbean Sea, and on the west by the Windward Passage. On the east, a 360-kilometer border separates it from the Dominican Republic. Haiti also possesses a number of smaller islands, including La Gonave, La Tortuga, Les Caymites, Ile de Anacoana, and La Grande Calle. The total area of the country is 27,750 square kilometers. I made a mistake earlier and thought it was 27 kilometers. History: Pre-Columbian. The original inhabitants of the island of Hispaniola, now Haiti /DR, were the indigenous Taino and Arawak-speaking people who began arriving from the Yucatan Peninsula as early as 4000 BCE, joined later by successive additional waves of indigenous groups from the Orinoco Amazon region of the South American present-day Venezuela. The uh, Taino settled across the Caribbean and became known as the island Arawaks. The name Haiti is derived from the indigenous Taino-Arawak name for the entire island of Hispaniola, which they called Ai-Tai, land of mountains. That's AY-TI. It was Christopher Columbus who renamed it La Isla Española, the Spanish island, when he arrived in 1492. This later evolved into the name Hispaniola. Spanish colonial settlement. The Spanish were slow to settle the island. The Taino Arawak destroyed the first Spanish settlement, and Spanish attempts to obtain gold using Taino labor after 1502 proved unprofitable. There was continued indigenous resistance, and Taino Arawak, who were not killed, disappeared into the remote mountains. Spanish establishment of sugar plantations did not meet with long-term success. The Spanish introduced sugarcane from the Canary Islands after 1516, and the need for forced labor on the plantations led to a sharp increase in the importation of West Africans. It also led to the first major slave revolt in the Americas in 1522. Enslaved West Africans, Wolof Muslims, led an uprising on the sugar plantation owned by Diego Colon, the son of Christopher Columbus. Many of the insurgents escaped to the mountains and formed the first independent African maroon community in the New World. Thereafter, increasing numbers of imported Africans kept escaping into the island's interior and linked up with residual pockets of indigenous Taino Arawaks, creating expanding communities of African Maroons. By 1530s, Maroon bands had become so dangerously pervasive that large armed groups were required for travel outside the fledgling Spanish plantations. This led to a severe restriction on Spanish movement, which allowed British and French buccaneers and their indigenous guides to begin using the nearby land of La Tortuga, the western portion of the island, for hunting wild pigs and other animals to produce boucan, dried meat for sale to passing ships. France established direct control over Tortuga in the early 1600s, and from there expanded to the north coast of Hispaniola. French colonial settlement. French settlement on Hispaniola began in 1625. In 1664, France formally claimed the western portion of the island, which they called Saint Dominique. The French established large sugar and coffee plantations, and over the years brought in millions of enslaved Africans to provide forced labor. These highly profitable operations soon made it the richest colony in the Western Hemisphere. Notoriously, brutal plantation conditions ensured a short lifespan for slaves, which resulted in regular replacement with fresh African captives and constant maroonage. Thousands of Africans escaped into the remote mountain areas, established free maroon settlements, and interacted with communities of indigenous Taino Arawaks that existed well beyond French or Spanish control. By 1790, a year before the Revolution, the colony's population totaled more than 500,000 enslaved African workers, 28,000 free gens de couleur, mostly Euro-African mixture, functioning as an intermediate class of about 30,000 Europeans, French, who had held all political and economic control. Haitian Revolution. In August 1791, enslaved Africans in the north rose in rebellion. The revolution spread quickly, eventually coming under the leadership of locally born Toussaint L'Ouverture, who soon formed alliances with the Free Gens de Couleur and the African Maroons. By 1794, forces under Toussaint L'Ouverture had succeeded in overcoming the French colonial army, resisting invasions by British and Spanish forces, and had liberated the entire colony from French control. As a result, these unprecedented upheavals, Napoleon Bonaparte sent a contingent of French troops in 1801 to subdue the colony and reinforce slavery. Toussaint L'Ouverture was captured and taken to France, where he died in prison the next year. This caused the other revolutionary leaders, Jean-Jacques Dessalines, Alexandre Sabez Pétion, and Henry Christophe to resume the Liberation War. The French forces were disseminated, and on the 1st of January in 1804, the new nation declared independence. It became the second independent republic in the New World after the U.S. and was called Haiti in recognition of the old Taino Arawak name. In 1806, Dessalines was assassinated, and for the next decade, the northern part of Haiti was ruled by Christophe, while the southern part was under control of Alexander Pétion. Seeking to make Haiti an internationally respected black nation, Christophe revived sugar production using an unrelenting military system. This brought production back up to 2/3 of pre-revolutionary levels. However, it alienated his officers who mutilated, who mutinied, causing Christophe to take his own life rather than face the rebellious generals. Following Christophe's death in 1820, the northern and southern regions were reunited as the Republic of Haiti under Jean-Pierre Boyer. When the Spanish-controlled western portion of the island sought to gain its own independence in 1821, Haitian forces invaded that colony and united the entire island of Hispaniola for the next 22 years. See Dominican Republic. Superpower sanctions. The Haitian Revolution was a stunning development in the world of the 19th century, representing an inspiration for some and causing a great deal of trepidation in others. In an era convinced of black inferiority and highly dependent on slave labor, the stunning success of the revolution was seen by some as an unforgivable affront to European preeminence and prompted widespread calls for punitive measures. Besides helping to inspire numerous slave revolts in the Caribbean and United States, the new republic was instrumental in hastening the eventual abolition of slavery. It widely supported the regional abolitionist cause. Among other actions, Haiti provided sanctuary and financing for Simon Bolivar and the ultimately successful Latin American Revolution on condition that he put an end to slavery in that region. See Venezuela. Prompted by fears of the rapid spread of slave rebellions to other territories, all the slaveholding powers imposed a total blockade on Haiti, effectively isolating the new nation from participation in the international world. France refused to recognize Haiti's independence for 3 decades, until it agreed to pay 150 million francs compensation for the French plantation owners' losses. The Vatican withdrew its priests and did not return them until 1860, when Santo Domingo relinquished its own independence to Spain. See Dominican Republic. The reparations to France in 1833 plunged the government of Haiti deeply into debt and permanently crippled the country's economy. In 1844, the eastern 2/3 of the island became emboldened enough to declare its independence. 1844, becoming the Republic of Santo Domingo today. Dominican Republic. Throughout the 19th century, Haiti was ruled by a series of short-duration presidents, reflecting an ongoing struggle for political preeminence between the mixed-race mulatto urban minority and the large black rural majority with whom they did not identify. Moreover, under the ever-present burden of debt, the country's economy gradually came to be dominated by foreigners, particularly from Germany. U.S. involvement. During the First World War, 1915, the United States, then already in control of the Dominican Republic, invaded and occupied Haiti over concerns about the extent of German influence in the region. This initiated an era of direct U.S. involvement in Haiti's affairs. Under U.S. occupation, infrastructure was built up, administrative systems introduced, and government and industry centralized. However, this power shift from the provinces to the capital helped to usher in the destruction of traditional African-based, self-reliant socio-economic fabric of the country. Moreover, it prompted an exodus from the countryside. A war of resistance against these reforms, initiated by nationalist rebels, Cacos, in 1920, prompted the U.S. controlled government to create a National Guard that later became the infamous Armée de Haiti, Haitian Army. The U.S. ended its occupation in 1934, leaving the country under the control of the mixed-race minority centralized in the capital, Port-au-Prince, with the U.S. trained and equipped Army de Haiti ready to serve and protect their interests. It also left a space open for greater involvement in Haitian affairs of the Dominican Republic sugar industry. Beginning in the late 1920s, the first Haitian braceros, or cane cutters, were taken across the border to work in the U.S.-controlled Dominican sugar industry. By 1935, the consensus recorded a cross-border Haitian population of 50,000. With the depression of the 1930s and a precipitous drop in sugar prices, a crisis developed. In response, the Dominican dictator, General Rafael Trujillo, ordered the massacre of Haitian migrants by the armed forces of that country, leading to the deaths of between 20,000 and 25,000 Haitians. Despite the massacre, subsequent Haitian governments signed contracts with the Dominican authorities, notably State Sugar Council, CEA, allowing the recruitment of Haitian braceros in return for a per capita fee. Militarization. In 1946, following the military ousting of Élie Lescot, who had ruled since 1939, de Marcel's estate succeeded in becoming the country's first black president since the American occupation. However, his efforts at reform sparked a Dominican Republic-sponsored crisis which led to his eventual resignation in 1950. The Military Council of Government assumed control while steps were taken to prepare the country for universal suffrage, and in 1957, Dr. Francis de Villiers, Papa Doc, was elected by popular vote. Duvaliers' regime first attracted international criticism in the 1960s for its human rights violations. This included the harsh treatment of potential political adversaries by the Volunteers for National Security, the secret police organization also known as Tonton Macoutes. Some anti-de Villiers elements chose to go into exile in the neighboring Dominican Republic, and already strained relations between the two countries deteriorated in 1963, when an anti-de Villiers military plot was exposed and crushed. Haitian police invaded the Dominican embassy to seize asylum-seeking anti-government plotters, which led to a buildup of Dominican government troops on the Haitian border. However, none of this stopped the continued recruitment of Haitian braceros to work in the Dominican sugar industry or the per capita fees that were paid in return. Upon his death in 1971, Duvalier was succeeded by his 19-year-old son, Jean-Claude Duvalier, nicknamed Baby Doc, who was backed by a shadow cabinet. He was subsequently deposed in 1986 and allowed to go into exile. Peoples. Main language, Creole, French. Main languages. Main religions, Christianity, Roman Catholic, and syncretic African religions, Voodoo. The overwhelming majority of the population, 95%, of Haiti is predominantly of African descent. The rest of the population is mostly mixed European African ancestry, mulatto. There are few people of Syrian and Lebanese origin. There is also a community of Europeans of Polish origin and a small minority of people from the Dominican Republic. Most of the country's population is concentrated in the rural coastal plains and valleys in the urban areas. A small, light-skinned, wealthy business and professional elite located in the capital city controls most of Haiti's economy and decision-making. The mulatto population makes up half of this elite. Most Dominicans are prosperous and are active in business, as are many Syrian and Lebanese who are involved with trading. The large black majority is excluded from all formal political and economic participation. Most of them live in rural areas and have little contact with the capital city. Most farm small, low-yielding subsistence agriculture plots or grow cash crops like coffee, most of which is for export. The bulk of good farmland is devoted to large plantations of sugarcane, sisal, cotton, and rice. The urban portion of the majority Haitian population is mainly involved in the informal economy, or, if formally employed, then mostly in manufacturing, the service industries, and tourism. Haiti's official languages are French and Creole, Ilocin, Haitian Creole. Nearly all Haitians speak Creole Ayacin, which, with French being spoken by the small group of educated people. Many Haitians also speak English and Spanish, particularly due to the proximity of the Dominican Republic and Cuba and the extent of travel and trade between the nations. Catholicism is the formal state religion, and there is a considerable Protestant minority. The largely African-based religious system known as Voodoo is recognized as an official religion and is practiced by a majority of the population. Voodoo incorporates African, Taino-Arawak ancestors and those of the Catholic saints in a syncretic spiritual structure. Due to centuries of demonization by formal churches and stereotyping and ridicule by the secular world, most of the population prefers to conceal their simultaneous adherence to this faith. Governance. For centuries, the effects of the virtual quarantine imposed on Haiti after the 1791 revolution had been mainly confined to the impoverished and marginalized Haitian majority. Their existence continued to be of little concern to the international community as long as they stayed in territorial isolation. However, the situation began to change drastically following the death of Papa Doc Duvalier. The political oppression and deepening poverty into which the country slipped during the late 1970s and early 1980s stimulated an unprecedented exodus of Haitian refugees to the Bahamas and the U.S. It especially drew increased international attention to the country's internal situation. Aristide's arrival. A popular movement supported by local churches hastened the disintegration of the Jean-Claude Duvalier regime. In a strongly religious country, it was also partially inspired by the 1983 visit of Pope John II, during which he forcefully advocated for the need for change. In December 1990, Jean-Bertrand Aristide, a former Roman Catholic priest, became the first democratically elected president in the history of Haiti. He was swept to power largely with the aid of a network of faith-based popular grassroots organizations. He earned 2/3 of the vote, defeating the internationally favored rival Marc Bazin, a former World Bank official. Aristide's attempted progressive reforms, reduced corruption, and trimmed state bureaucracy. The migrant labor agreement with the Dominican State Sugar Council, CEA, was also ended. The exodus of refugees virtually stopped, and human rights violations were reduced to below previous levels. However, his actions and populist stance seriously alarmed the elite, and Aristide was soon deposed by a violent military coup just 7 months after taking office. Aristide's departure. This ushered in 3 years of harsh military rule, including reprisals against grassroots political activists. The flow of refugees once again rose significantly. Many poured across the border to the Dominican Republic. Others risked their lives in unsafe, overcrowded boats and rough seas, heading directly or indirectly to the United States, Canada, or other Caribbean territories. In a move reminiscent of the 19th century, the U.S. administration introduced a containing blockade against Haiti. The U.S. Coast Guard intercepted many refugee boats while others were lost at sea. Of the thousands attempted to flee, more than half were sent back to Haiti. With the crisis worsening, the United Nations also imposed broad sanctions to get the military to step down. However, this additional economic embargo, which included petroleum products, only increased the level of hardship for the Haitian majority. The number of Haitians fleeing the country in search of political asylum greatly increased, with some 20,000 attempting to reach the U.S. shores during 1994. Aristide's return. The political deadlock in Haiti ended in 1994 with an invasion of the U.S. Marines aimed at supporting Aristide's return to power. The Haitian army generals went to exile as well as the chief of police who was crossed into the Dominican Republic. Aristide's return raised hopes for peace, but not necessarily for economic improvement. The majority of Haitian population continued to see their best hopes and prospects in continued economic immigration. Much of Haiti's already limited infrastructure, including bridges, roads, and port facilities, had deteriorated beyond the military regime. Moreover, the international embargo had crippled an already weak economy, driving it close to collapse. The Armée de Haiti was disbanded and elections held in 1995, which René Préval, a former prime minister, was elected. However, social and political tensions remained and the imposed blockades continued in other ways. The United States, which is Haiti's largest funder, froze economic aid, citing delays by Aristide's government in implementing economic reforms. These reforms involved the privatization of key state-owned companies such as banks, the electricity and telephone utilities, and the country's main port. In 2001, despite weakened civil society aspirations, Aristide managed to be popularly re-elected and to hang on to office in the face of intense external pressure for reform. Citing undemocratic behavior, in 2003, the U.S. government vetoed the delivery of U.S. $500 million in approved international American Development Bank aid loans to Haiti. These social sector funds were earmarked specifically for improving education, health, and clean water supply, all of which were aimed at the poor and marginalized Haitian majority. Aristide's exit. In February of 2004, the Aristide government was once again impatiently ousted by rebels. Having already disbanded the army, the coup was undertaken by well-equipped urban gangs and demobilized soldiers of the former Armée de Haiti, who began their invasion from a staging area very close to the Dominican border. In the ensuing turmoil, Aristide was forced to exile under U.S. escort. In the bicentennial anniversary year of Haiti's Declaration of Independence, the United States once again sent Marines to the territory. A multinational peacekeeping body eventually replaced the U.S. forces. In February of 2006, René Préval was re-elected, and he took office in May of 2006. That's the end of the reading from www.refworld.org, World Directory of Minorities and Indigenous Peoples Haiti. And I'll go ahead and upload the link as well. Thank you for your time.